Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're comparing the Ford Edge to the Chevy Blazer and finally also to the Jeep Grand Cherokee to find out which American SUV is the best in this particular segment. Before we get into this video though, as always, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller, Jeep Chrysler here in Provo, the Chevy here in Provo, and the Ford here in Provo for giving me some time with all three of these vehicles. All three of these are currently available for sale for the time being, so if you're interested, I'll include a link to their inventory in the description down below so you can check out what they have currently. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. So under the hood of the Edge ST, we have a turbocharged 2.7 liter V6 that goes through a 7-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy is 19 around town and then 25 on the highway, with power outputs being 335 horsepower and then 380 pound-feet of torque. Under the hood of the Blazer, we have a naturally aspirated 3.6 liter V6 that goes through a 9-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy is 19 around town and then 26 on the highway, with power outputs being 308 horsepower and then 270 pound-feet of torque. And then finally with the Grand Cherokee, we have a 3.6 liter V6 paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy with this is 19 around town and then 26 on the highway, with power outputs being 295 horsepower and then 260 pound-feet of torque. So the Edge with its turbocharged engine obviously has the most power out of the bunch. However, fuel economy on these is all very similar. Now, before we go over the front ends, I do want to mention, if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So starting off with the Edge, I really like that little like U-shape there on the hood. That looks pretty dang aggressive. You guys can see the grill's all blacked out, and you know, it has a sporty SUV appearance. Now popping over to the Blazer, this one looks crazy. A lot of people didn't like it when it was initially released, but I feel like it's kind of grown on the public because I think, frankly, it looks really cool. And then finishing things up with the Grand Cherokee, this one's definitely the most like luxury looking out of the bunch with its like boxy Range Rover type style. The tire and wheel setup on the Edge is 245/50/20 in the front and over in the rear. Now with the Blazer, it's 265/45/21 in the front and over in the rear. And then with the Grand Cherokee, it's 265/50/20 in the front and over in the rear. And while we're over here with the Grand Cherokee, let's take a quick look at the side view. So you guys can see everything's blacked out on this particular Grand Cherokee, including the wheels. Now the fender flares, it's kind of hard to see. Those are just black plastic, which don't pop out too much because, well, the rest of the vehicle is all blacked out. But I think that Jeep did a good job with the overall side styling here. Now the Blazer is obviously in between the other two, so it's kind of hard to give you guys a like perfect side view. Actually, the lighting will probably be a little bit better over here on this side, but I do love like the two-tone design with the roof being black and then the bottom portion being white, but then the very bottom is black yet again. And so yeah, just really sleek lines. Again, it looks like a sports car turned into an SUV. And then finally with the Edge, I think they did a good job with the wheel design, and then I like that like distinctive line that just cuts all the way down. But for some reason, this one like looks the smallest, although all these vehicles are pretty similar in overall length. Now taking a look at the key fobs, functionality is pretty similar in all of them. You guys will notice that the Chevy and the Jeep there both have remote start as well as the opening for the hatch, whereas the Ford doesn't have remote start. So starting with the cargo area here in the Grand Cherokee, it is absolutely enormous. As you can see, they've got some storage space under here, and we're gonna do a not very scientific test where, oh, I basically jump here into it. Yeah, we're going to pretend like that was funny for the camera. But I'm just going to pay attention to like how much space there is in the back of all of them. And then popping over to the Blazer, here's the cargo area. And I guess we'll do our little jump test to kind of see. This cargo area is actually a little bit smaller, it feels like. And then finally, we've got the Edge, which actually has these nice little controls to throw down the seats. That's pretty fancy. But quickly pop in here and kind of see. This is like just as big as the Grand Cherokee, to be honest. Well, this lighting is absolutely horrible, but what we learned is that the Grand Cherokee has the largest storage area is what it looks like. The Blazer is probably the smallest by a slight margin, and then the Edge is close to the Grand Cherokee, but it's not quite as big. Now, when it comes to rear styling, first off, I love how everything's all blacked out in the Grand Cherokee and the taillights and everything. I think that it just looks so cool. And then popping over to the Blazer, again, it's got that like sporty SUV appearance here on the back end. And look at the taillights. Pretty intricate design. And then popping over to the Edge, it's interesting looking. That is for sure the exhaust tips there on the bottom, which those exhaust tip covers look exactly the same as what's on the front end of the new Honda Pilot, or no, CR-V, if I remember properly. But let me know which SUV booty you like the best. Now here's our legroom in the back of the Edge. You guys can see here with the vents, got a little charging port down below. We have these little seat pockets. And then here's a look at the door panel. Pretty nice looking. And then headroom. I do want to mention these seats are very comfortable here in the back of the Edge. They got like these cool inserts on them. And then here is our legroom in the back of the Blazer. You guys can see we've got little vents here and then some charging port action, got some storage pocket action as well. And then look at like the padding here on the door panel. And then headroom back here on top of that. Also, got a sunroof here at the top. These seats, probably not as comfortable as the Edge seats, but they do look really cool, as you can see. Also, the Blazer has heated seats in the back. That's nice. Now here's our legroom in the Grand Cherokee. You guys can see a little storage pocket, some vents and everything. Got some USB action. Heated seats in the back with an outlet. And then look at this door panel. It is fancy looking, that's for sure. And then headroom. And then here are the seats, by the way. I'd say that these are pretty much as comfortable as the Edge, but the Edge seats are still probably the most comfortable out of the three. So quickly before we move on, the Edge has the most comfortable seats, but the least amount of room in the back. The Blazer has the most amount of room, but the least comfortable seats. And then the Grand Cherokee is kind of like in between, where the seats are in the middle, and then the space is also kind of in the middle. Now, speaking of seats, these front seats here with the Edge look very cool. And then also look at the steering wheel, it's perforated here. You got the ST logo right there, paddle shifters there on the back. We got stuff like memory seats. We got blind spot monitoring with the mirrors. And then you guys can see gauge clusters like analog down the center, and then you got either screen on the side. This is one of Ford's older units, so it definitely kind of dates this vehicle quite a bit. And then in reverse, we just have a regular backup camera, nothing too fancy. And then you guys can see with the rest of the screen, it's like this tablet basically. We do have heated seats, which is nice. You got like a climate tab there at the bottom. But I will say that although the screen responds really well, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of this. I feel like Ford's horizontal infotainment system is a little bit easier to use, but you know, it's got pretty solid functionality overall. And then storage space, pretty good. Got a little dial shifter, the parking brake, auto stop start. Got some cup holders. And then here's our center console. I guess it has a double lid thing. Pretty interesting. Well, there we go. And let's see what the glove box is like. Yeah, pretty spacious. And then up top, just a darker colored headliner, no sunroof or anything like that. Man, these seats in the Blazer are so cool looking with all the red. And then look at like the steering wheel as well. So with this, there's quite a bit built into this. So you got like radio controls in the back. You got cruise control, heated steering wheel button on the steering wheel. Got memory seats. We've got blind spot monitoring. And then similar to the Ford, we've got a mix of analog and digital for the gauge cluster, but this definitely looks quite a bit more modern than what you have over on the Ford side of things. And then in reverse, this one has a 360 camera system, so definitely a much better camera system than what you have over there in the Edge. And then as for the infotainment screen itself, responds well. Got your climate controls and everything there. The weirdest thing about the Blazer is the glove box, because it's like a, yeah, super strange. And then you guys can see for your auto stop start, and then the climate controls down below. This has the cool vents where you twist the vent to actually adjust the temperature, which is fun. And then we got like wireless phone charging pad, shifter for that 9-speed automatic. And then this is in 2-wheel drive right now. You can put it in 4-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive rather, if you want. You got like a sport mode, Toho mode, all that. And then center console. And oh, we already did the glove box earlier. I'm like, wait a second. Just, we'll just pretend like that didn't happen. Anyways, we've got the rear view camera mirror. And then this one actually has a panoramic sunroof as well. So nice tech. Now here are the seats in the Jeep. I feel like these are the least cool looking, but they are definitely functional with how comfortable they are. I do love the steering wheel though. It definitely feels and looks very luxurious. Got like the paddle shifters in the back, radio controls. This has like adaptive cruise control. Just like the other two, you got like memory seats, blind spot monitoring with the mirrors. But unlike the other two, gauge cluster is fully digital here on the Grand Cherokee. So that's a big plus. Let's see what the camera system's like. Just a backup camera. So we do have heated seats and heated steering wheel with this one. Touchscreen itself responds pretty well. It does take a second for some of the pages to load up, but it is cold outside, so that could definitely have an effect. And then you got like all the buttons here at the top for like lane departure, stability control, auto stop start. And then notice here with the dash, got some nice stitching. I do like the overall look of the interior here with the Grand Cherokee. And then if we press this, apparently I don't have the magic touch. There we go. It's like our charging area. And we got our dial shifter here, which feels very high quality. Drive mode select, and some cup holder action, and then here's the center console. And then popping into the glove box, and decent storage. And then just a regular, well, it's got a manual mirror dimmer. Now, in terms of pricing, the Edge stickers for about $50,000, the Blazer stickers for about $53,000, and then the Grand Cherokee stickers for about $56,000. So there's like $3,000 between all of them. And when I say $3,000, I mean you go like up $3,000 when you go to each of the vehicles. But anyways, I do want to mention before we cap things off with this walk around comparison is there is also going to be a driving comparison. So if you're not subscribed already, I'd recommend you subscribe so that as soon as I post that driving comparison, you can see it pop up. But here are my thoughts with the walk around comparison. So with the Edge, this one definitely feels the most dated out of the bunch with certain elements. I love the seats inside. I think they're fantastic. They're super comfortable. But also this doesn't have a lot of space inside. Like the cargo area is great, but then the passenger area is not necessarily the best. I'm talking about like the rear passenger area. The front area is completely fine. Now popping over the Blazer, this one is definitely a solid value. So from a powertrain perspective, it's just like the Grand Cherokee, but it has a lot more options than the Grand Cherokee does. It also has more space in the second row than the Grand Cherokee, but obviously the trunk felt a little bit more cramped compared to the Grand Cherokee. So, you know, give and take. But what I will say is, this one definitely feels the best from like an option perspective. I feel like you get like the most bang for your buck with the Blazer, and especially considering the fact it's $3,000 less than the Grand Cherokee. Now popping over the Grand Cherokee, I know that looks are subjective, but for me personally, I think I like the Grand Cherokee the most in terms of the styling. I think it just looks the best out of the bunch. That being said though, it's definitely, you know, struggling on the value side of things because it had about the same amount of options that, well, the ST has in terms of interior creature comforts and all that, but it's quite a bit more expensive, $6,000 more expensive. And so it feels like you're paying for the Jeep brand and the Jeep looks at this point rather than, you know, paying for extra stuff. Well, that is until we drive it. So let's see if you get extra money or extra out of the Jeep by driving it compared to the Edge. Does that make sense? Anyways, that'll sum things up for today's video. I'll see ya.